Alright everyone, welcome back again to more Misericorde Volume 2, White Wool and Snow. Let me tell you guys right now that this particular ep has been very enlightening on the fact that I will forever dislike Eustace. If the thumbnail wasn't enough of a giveaway, I don't know what else to tell you, but I do like the fact that certain things are revealed in here that are very curious, to say the least, and I look forward to seeing how much more continues on with this story, because I feel like the closer we get, the more and more I realize and am very frightened that we're not going to get enough to unfold before Volume 2 ends, and then we have to wait again for Volume 3. But that just goes to show how much I'm enjoying this series, and I hope to see the conclusion of this once it all finally comes into fruition. So, if anything else, hope you all continue to enjoy. Thank you again for the love and support, and let's continue on. I held my workbook in my other hand, gripped so tight the cover might have bent. "Who is it?" "Sister Hedwig." Muffled voices. Then the door opened. The superior ushered me into her office quickly. In the fading light, I could see the bishop was seated in my usual chair. He smiled at me. I nodded in return. "Is something amiss?" "No, well, yes. There is much amiss. But, well..." The pair of them looked at me expectantly. Specifically, I want to talk about the night Catherine died." Without invitation, I stepped forward to the superior's desk and placed my book down. I flicked to an empty page. I think the best thing I can do right now, to put this to rest once and for all, is to gather as many stories as I can and compare them. Everyone has told me bits and pieces of what they remember, but there can only be one truth, so if I collect everything and find the contradictions... The superior and the bishop were both looking at me, slightly wide-eyed. "You had not been doing this already?" "Well, not this thoroughly, no." The bishop rubbed his beard. "I was not here, of course, but Mabel has told me the story several times. There's not much to tell. If there was any thread I could follow, I might not have needed to release Hedwig from her cell." "You were in a meeting with Angela, correct? May I borrow this quill?" "By all means." I hastily labeled the map I'd drawn. "Can you give me more details?" Sister Angela was arguing with me about her job naturally. The bishop chuckled. "She is passionate. If you would like to take her off my hands, you are welcome to." Can you be even more specific? Just in case Angela's story doesn't line up, you know? Are you really going to be asking everyone like this? That's no good. The whole reason I pulled you out of your cell was to do this work discreetly. I cannot think of an alternative, Superior. I've tried my best being subtle, but fishing for all of that information would simply take too long. Years, perhaps. Besides, I have a plan. Really now. I am the chronicler of this abbey, and I've been fulfilling my duty, but there is a gap in our history, isn't there? The night Catherine died. Well, in the days beyond until I took my quill up in the library. Well, the night a beloved sister died has no written record. That's not right, is it? That should be recorded. So, that's my plan. I want to ask everyone about the missing days so I can fill it in. And then, perhaps, I can find the truth. It's the best idea I've heard yet, Mabel. Those girls aren't stupid. They will catch on very quickly. What is it to catch on to? Young Hedwig here won't be lying. She'd just have a hidden purpose. And if there's someone who recognizes the ulterior motive, then they'll act accordingly and reveal themselves. I am understanding your plan correctly, yes, young Hedwig? More or less. If a sister with something to hide feels as if Hedwig is breathing down her neck, she will be very easy to spot. And if our suspected killer remains none the wiser, the truth will reveal itself when all the stories have been compared. You are a clever one, Hedwig. Do you really believe that this is the only way forward? Yes, Superior. I have been doing my utmost, but there's only so much I can ask. It could take years to piece everything together. We don't have years, do we? I looked between the Superior and the Bishop. For a moment, I hoped that their answer would be yes. We do not. I suppose we don't, do we? How good of an actor are you, Hedwig? Well, I haven't been found out yet, have I? Not as far as we know, no. It is not my preferred course of action, but I see precious few alternatives. Very well, Hedwig. Ask your questions. The morning Catherine's body was discovered, you and Angela were arguing in here. Yes, it was very early in the morning. It can be described fairly as late night. Is there anything specific about the argument worth noting? Sister Angela and I had a disagreement about appropriation of funds. It is her right as prioress to check on me on such matters, I suppose. And then Sister Charity knocked on your door? Yes. Readthrough went to confirm the body. Then Angela escorted Charity back to the dormitories. I told her to wake up Moira. Then she returned with both Moira and Eustace in tow. You didn't ask for Eustace? No, but I'm glad Angela brought her. Her help was invaluable. Angela began a cursory search around the abbey for the culprit while Moira, Eustace, and myself carried Catherine's body to the chapel. Once the body had been moved, I sent Eustace to wake the rest of the sisters so a full search could begin. What did you do? Moira and I stayed with the body and examined it. Well, Moira examined it. I stood and watched. Then what happened? There was a long wait. Finally, Angela dragged the mail carrier in on his ear. She said she had found them hiding in some shrubbery. Moira, Angela, and I escorted him to the hospitalum via my office so I could retrieve the keys. It was a long and very unpleasant walk. I returned and immediately penned a letter to the diocese, and the bishop nodded sagely. Here we are. Thank you, Superior. I'm not totally convinced you will be able to pull these details so readily from others. What else is there to do? I do not know. She sighed heavily. Therefore, take my blessing. Inform Sister Angela as soon as you can. She should be pleased to hear this. I knew for a fact that Angela would be most upset by my insistence on writing things down, but I hoped that my initiative would at least placate her. I closed my workbook and made for the door. Thank you, Superior. Excuse me. I'll begin right away. Oh, before you leave, our newest oblates are arriving soon. Indeed. What will you tell them if they notice you asking around? You intend to keep them in the dark? I assume they will be curious, but I am not sure how best to tell them. You can't hide the fact that a sister died here. News will get out sooner or later. Of course. I wouldn't dream of hiding it from them forever. But they might be put off seeing all of this unfolding in front of them as soon as they arrive. This was not an argument I wanted to have a hand in. If they ask me, I will tell them the truth. After all, I am the chronicler. I am simply filling in a gap in our abbey's history. I suppose that is all you can do. Goodbye, Hedwig. I bowed and exited the office. That was one down. The easiest one, I suppose. How to proceed? The Superior was correct. This would be far more suspicious than my behavior thus far. Eustace, for one, would see right through me. I felt slightly queasy thinking about her. I wasn't just breaking my promise to her, I was practically mocking it. I only hope God would forgive me for this. Justice for Catherine was more important than my friendship with a woman who was holding her death over me. I would save Eustace's story for last then. Maybe I could at least hide my broken promise from her for a week. I began to walk idly to the cloister. Perhaps I would run into someone and strike up a conversation and quickly strike another interview off my list. I thought back on the Superior's story. It revealed very little that I did not already know, but at the very least it provided some sense of shape. A good foundation of stone to build on. My thoughts veered off, of course. I thought about the clock tower. I had no idea what to imagine. I had never seen a clock and beyond steeples in the tallest corners of Limbarrow. I had only read about towers. What purpose could it serve? Bells provided all the structure I needed around time. Before I had left my cell, my body had been perfectly attuned to the hours. A more precise manner of telling time than the sun in the sky just felt superfluous to me. Well, I suppose I could understand the need for an hourglass. But those mark out a very specific amount of time from a chosen point. They don't loom over the day. Do you not just eat when you're hungry, sleep when you are tired, pray when it is time to pray? As I wandered around the cloister, these silly thoughts bounced around my head instead of more pertinent questions about the investigation. Oi, Hedwig. Oh, my goodness. Hello again, Sister Margaret. I've called you twice now. You're off in your own little world. Yes, I was distracted. I thought you were just gonna get something from the dorms. Were you sitting out here waiting for me? I was. I apologize. I think all that exercise might have worn me out. My head has been elsewhere. Really? That's a relief. I was worried you were upset with me. I was. But that was not a conversation I could have right now. No. I actually wanted to talk to you about something important and I didn't know how quite to approach it. Oh? Yes. Something you said earlier. It reminded me of Sister Catherine. Catherine II. And, well, I've had this question gnawing at me for a while, seeing as I've stepped into her role as chronicler. How to cover the day she died in my writings. Oh. Just because, as it stands, there is a gap between when she stopped writing and I began. And that is a fairly significant gap. There's no pleasant way for me to write about it, but I feel as if I must. She meant so much to everyone here. Whoa. Yes, that would have me walking around distracted as well. What I went to go get from the dorms was a book. I'm writing down everyone's accounts and then I'll sort of, combine them all. Unfortunately, I'm not sure I can say much helpful. I was asleep when it happened. Eustace came around banging on doors and I rolled out of bed and began hunting around the west side of the Abbey with a few other sisters. Do you remember who? It was a bit of a blur. I think Adela and Angela? Angela found James? You were there when that happened? Not near her, no. There weren't many of us there, as there was a lot of ground to cover. We had all spread out to search. When I heard Angela shouting, I remember being close to the outer wall. Near the path out towards the hospital? Yeah. Is there anything else important you can remember? Not about Catherine's death, no. That's not all that happened that day, though. I don't know. Everything that day before was fairly normal. She wouldn't have had a chance to write about that either, since she died before. I think that's worth writing down. Her last day was a normal day. A pleasant day. As far as I know, at least. We've even chatted the night before in the Misericorde. Well, what did you talk about? I don't mean to pry, but you're right. If there's something more pleasant, then I can make sure gets recorded about that day. We've been talking about her plans for the future. She had big ideas. I could see that Margaret's eyes were glassy. Thank you, Margaret. This was a big help. I'll make sure it gets written down. I'd appreciate that. Are you really gonna ask everyone? If I can. I'd be careful. Some people might be touchy. She wiped her face with her sleeve. I will be as gentle as I can be. I do think this is important, though. I think you're right. But by God, it's gonna hurt. Just take it slow, yeah? That was not an option. Unfortunately, no. I mean, she can be a little bit more tactful. I don't know how she can really go about it without triggering someone's, suspicions. Because it would be really easy to read her, especially with how she is currently. But I get that she's under pressure to get this done, like, really quick. So it's gonna be it's gonna be tough for her. I'm curious to see how she gets around it, especially once she reaches Eustace, because Eustace is the most problematic of the bunch. Right. I'll be off then. I apologize for making you wait out here for so long. Not at all. She gave me a weak smile and then wandered off. I was left to my own devices on the cloister path again. I watched Margaret disappear around a corner and suddenly felt very nervous. Undoubtedly, she would tell the other sisters what had just occurred. First Catherine, of course, and then Catherine would loudly complain about it to whoever would listen. And then others would hear. Some would get offended and refuse to talk to me. I would be forced to spend the rest of my life as an outcast in the Abbey, only exchanging polite, meaningless smiles with women who hated me. Unless, of course, Catherine's killer overheard Catherine and Margaret complaining about my little scheme and then take you out of the picture. I began to sprint toward the path Margaret had walked down. Perhaps I could catch her, beg her not to tell anyone what I had asked her. Oh God, I hope it was not too late to give it all up. Swear that I realized this was all a terrible idea. But she was gone. Honestly, I think she will keep that a secret. I don't think that's something that she would really tell anyone. Like, cause if she's gonna eventually talk to everyone anyway about Catherine II, then what's the point of really like going out of her way to just tell people unless she has a reason to warn them, you know? I realized I was halfway up the stairs and slowed down. I had no idea where she'd gone. Perhaps the dorms, perhaps the library, but I knew that she was nowhere I could make a private appeal. I slowly climbed the rest of the stairs in a daze and staggered toward my room. I could hear Margaret talking as I entered the dormitory hallway. She was standing with Moira and Catherine, already part way through some conversation. They all looked at me as I passed. Margaret offered a small wave. I raised my hand weakly as I stumbled through my door. I collapsed in the bed. That little sliver of determination was going to get me killed. Hedwig? I woke to Moira's touch on my shoulder. I bolted upright in bed, pulling my knees up to my chest. Moira! I apologize for barging in. Dinner's happening in the rectory and everyone got worried when you didn't turn up. I wasn't sure if you were napping or ill. I didn't mean to make anyone worry. I was just exhausted. I understand. Busy day? You could say so. Well, not too busy. In fact, I had a lot of spare time. But I felt so drained all the same. I briefly chatted with Margaret and then very strongly felt the urge to sleep. Moira chuckled. I can't say I relate. Margaret never bores me. Oh, no. I was not bored at all. Ah, a difficult conversation. Yes, how did you know? Margaret seemed a little out of sorts. Pensive, you know? I groaned. I had no intention of upsetting her. I'm sure you didn't. Whatever you're talking about, you couldn't have known. Perhaps you just reminded her of something unpleasant. I don't want to remind anyone of unpleasant things. That just happens. It's impossible to know for certain what could set people off. I used to upset Catherine terribly by talking about paintings I'd seen before taking my vows. Really? Catherine the first? We used to spend a lot of time grousing about missing our old lives. And I would say, oh, how I miss sitting for portraits. And Catherine would get all sullen. Nothing to do with me, of course. I tried apologizing for it, but she insisted it wasn't really my fault. I'm sure whatever you and Margaret were talking about was perfectly fine. Or rather, maybe not perfectly fine. But you can trust that she knows whatever thought you accidentally put in her head you didn't mean to. That couldn't have known. I certainly hope so. Hedwig. Moira looks surprisingly serious. I was taken aback. You always say I hope so when I'm right about something. It's like you want me to be wrong. I don't mean that. I'm sure it's not on purpose, but you should trust me. I'm good at these things. Trust Margaret, and trust me. Very well. Oh, that was perceptive of her, too. I stood up and stretched. These naps were not doing my body any good. Are you hungry at all? Do you want to come down for the end of supper? I don't think so. I think I might do some writing or some such. Well, I won't nag you. Can I keep you company for a moment? Certainly. Moira sat down on the bed across from me. You know, if you're not hungry now, I think there's room in the Misericorde tonight. Oh. Let me think. Myself, Margaret, Catherine, Adela, and Eustace are the only ones who have committed, I think. So yes, you should join us. Well, another night of debauchery was the last thing I wanted, and the thought of sharing space with Adela was deeply embarrassing. On the other hand, it was a perfect opportunity to ask several sisters about the night Catherine died. But you also have to remember Eustace is there too. I sighed and steeled myself. If only I could conjure the sense of strength that holding the sword that evening in the cellars imbued in me. Why not? Hopefully none of Eustace's pranks this time. She'll be there so you and I can keep an eye on her. I chuckled weakly. Well, we have at least an hour. I don't know about you, but I'm aching all over. Have you had a busy day? Busy week, more like. And a busy month. Busy year. A busy life, but not much to show for it, I'm afraid. You have plenty to show for it, surely. Is there anyone as accomplished as you here? Aside from Darcy, I suppose? I appreciate that. You're quite right. But sometimes I think about what life would be like if I'd ended up somewhere in a mite more prestigious. There are more abbeys out there doing really advanced work, medical journals, surgeries, that sort of thing. I would faint if I were within a mile of surgery. Oh, it took me a long time to get used to the sight of blood and guts. Just those words make me quite ill. What's the most horrible thing you've ever seen? I couldn't help but let rotten images flash through my mind. The sensation of Flora's leg knocking against my side, a fish skull cracking against the side of a bucket, the quickest glimpse of a goat's head leaving its body as a sword swung through it, insects crawling through slimy innards, pale waterlogged skin. I shivered. My imagination could not be allowed to run wild this way. In all honesty, Flora's leg might be the worst harrowing image I've witnessed. Ooh, yes. It's a miracle it's still attached at all. If you hadn't been there, she would have certainly lost it forever. Although, between you and me, there is a very good chance she'll still need to amputate it. If I can be grave for a moment, I keep thinking to myself, maybe that would have been better. We did a lot of extra work where a quick clean cut above the knee probably would have sufficed. I'm sure she's grateful to have both legs still. If she recovers properly. I say properly, but it's more like if she has a miraculously good recovery. If she ever walks again, it'll be with a limp. For the rest of her life. Is that so bad? Moira giggled pleasantly. You have such a way of cutting through my worries, Hedwig. You're right, of course. It'd be better to limp forever than not walk at all. We sat in silence for a moment. I hope you don't think I look down on the crippled. I used to work at an abbey much closer to castle. You know? Lots of soldiers would come in with the most horrible injuries you can imagine. I chopped legs off before, you know. Oh, God, really? Ugh. And arms. I've cut mangled genitals crushed by horses too. Oh, why would you say that? I've even scooped out damaged eyes. Enough! I'm gonna retch if you don't stop. I'm sorry, Hedwig. All I mean to say is, I've seen what life is like without a limb or two. It's a lot harder. People can be very cruel. There's not much work out there for crippled men. Maybe even less for crippled women. Well, Flora's in the service of the Lord of the Abbey, isn't she? She'll make do no matter what. I've always wondered if she'll stay here. Of course she will. One can't just leave. See, that's just the thing. One can just leave. You can leave here whenever you like, in fact. It'll be hard, no doubt. Asking for official permission from the Pope, mind you. Those are very slim chances and could take years if it did happen. But leaving? Just leave. That can be done as quick as you like. But finding a life outside the Abbey, no easy task, to be sure. And much harder for someone like Flora, who would marry her without a leg. No wealthy suitor, that's for certain. But she could leave. If she was pushed far enough, she could leave. Nobody could stop her. She might die in a ditch a few weeks later, but she could leave. Why is she saying all these things? You know? Her conversation about, being able to cut a leg off, an arm off, everything, like, she spoke so casually and almost. If I didn't pick up on the context, it was almost like she spoke it in a code manner. Like, she was so accustomed to it that now it's making me think, someone like Moira, who's so pleasantly good, could all be just an act. Like the typical saying of it's always the kind ones, not necessarily the quiet ones, but it's always, someone that's really kind, and it's just it's essentially a wolf hiding in plain sight, So now it gives me cause for measure to actually suspect Moira now, and I actually didn't want to in the beginning, because even I knew from the get-go that she was incredibly nice, but like most stories, I wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt because I didn't want to think for a second that, another nice character could be a suspect, because that's just obvious, like, of course there's going to be a nice character that's going to be, suspect to this type of crime. But now, after all she's saying, I'm a little worried because I like her. Goodness, I keep saying such grim things. Yeah, Moira, you might want to stop before you give yourself away. Hint, hint. I really do not mean to be so gloomy, Hedwig. I just have a lot of these thoughts that I haven't been able to share. It's no trouble. She nodded at me and I realized her lips were trembling. Her eyes were glassy. I've just got too much going on. I sat there feeling very stupid. I feel like if I stop moving, I can't keep all these thoughts at bay. What can I do for you? She laughed through her sniffles. You're meant to hug me, silly. Oh. I acquiesced, bewildered. I stepped forward and did my best to wrap her in my arms. She pulled me into her shoulder. It was warm, and bending down to meet her on the edge of the bed was slightly uncomfortable. Just a moment. I clambered over her awkwardly into a more comfortable position. It was difficult as she was still clinging to my torso all the while. Once I was more comfortable, I returned Moira's embrace, wrapping my arms gingerly around her back. See? Isn't this nice? I suppose it is. She adjusted, turning her back to me and nestling into my pillow, leaving me with my arms dangled around her neck and shoulders as I laid next to her sideways. A little nap before we head to the Misericorde sounds divine. I can feel those aches melting away. Oh, that'd be good. One of my arms was pinned to the bed by her body, but I didn't want to disturb her. I tried my best to relax, somewhat bewildered by the position I found myself in. At the very least, I did not feel as off-kilter as I had when Adela had nestled close to me by the fire some nights ago, save for my arm, which was beginning to tingle. Oh yeah, that's gonna suck for you, because that arm is gonna fall asleep. Moira? Moira? I could hear a gentle snore. I dared not fall asleep myself, lest I miss the opportunity to prod everyone about the night Catherine was murdered. I cursed myself for failing to ask Moira before she dozed off. Well, I suppose there would be time enough soon. Honestly, that would have been the perfect time for you to question her. I adjusted my arm as best I could without waking Moira, and watched the light outside slowly fade. Eventually, I could hear people, moving about and chattering outside my door, and I could sense the energy of preparation. I shook Moira's shoulder as softly as I could. I think it's time. Oh, goodness me, did I fall asleep? Yes. Oh no, I was just so comfortable. I hope I didn't trap you in your bed. It was no trouble, but we should probably get up. Indeed. Would you mind stepping out first? Her voice had dropped to a low whisper. Just for, plausible deniability. You know how Catherine and Margaret are. I have a reputation to maintain. I never hear the end of the jokes if we stepped out together. You think that they might think? They've thought worse and less evidence. I nodded and climbed over Amara to leave. I opened and closed my door as surreptitiously as I could, making sure nobody in the hall would be able to look into my room. Luckily, only Eustace remained in the hall. She was leaning down, examining the hearth, looking as if she'd lost something. Oh, good evening. Greetings. I'm joining you all in the Misericorde tonight. Is that so? Yes. And? Well, I don't know. I thought you might be happy to hear that. Oh, certainly. Sorry. My mind is elsewhere. Could I help? No. Well, fuck you too, Eustace. I don't know. I don't like Eustace. I really don't. She sighed and stood up. Come on. Might as well head on over. I followed her lead out into the hall. There was a slight smell of smoke in the landing. Adela was lighting the torches. Eustace wrinkled her nose. Ah, my friends. I will be joining you in the Misericorde as soon as I have finished lighting all of the torches. She was as chipper as always. I tried my best to smile. I wondered if she felt as oddly as I did about spending an evening with me in that little room. Eustace opened the Misericorde door and ushered me in. Margaret and Catherine were already seated at the center table with a half-empty wineskin resting between them. Hedwig! What a delightful surprise! I seem to recall your first night here was cut short, although for the life of me I don't remember why. Eustace rolled her eyes and refused to take the bait. Tonight is us four, Adela and Moira, yes? That's what I heard. Where's Moira? In the dorms still, I think. She said something about needing a nap last I spoke to her. Ah, and Adela's just finishing up lighting the torches outside. Wonderful. I'll be able to stumble back to bed with no trouble. Catherine poured some wine into an empty cup and gestured toward me. Here, Hedwig. Rejoice. You're gonna be in a relatively noble company tonight. Is that so? She's just happy Sister Angela is absent. That makes me sound so conceited. Does the absence of a cold hard shrew, 2 old hags, and a wheelbarrow make me happy? No. The presence of my dear friend Margaret and the rest of this esteemed company makes me happy. I think that's a far better way to look at things. Cheers. She raised her cup. Catherine downed the rest of her own drink and began pouring another. Eustace, do you know if Darcy is cooking anything for us? No, actually. I forgot to mention that. She's getting a little anxious about supplies and doesn't want to cook anything extra. Boo. Aren't we due several more deliveries before it gets snowy? One at least. But I can't blame her for wanting to be conservative at the moment. We've got 2 new oblets on the way, winter looming. Not to mention all those builders whenever they turn up. They'll be bringing their own supplies, surely. As far as I'm aware, yes, that is their responsibility. Eustace shrugged. I'm just a messenger. Indeed. Well, perhaps we can just go raid the the pantry later. Ooh, yes. You'll be singing a different tune after you get peckish. We'll see. Eustace stepped forward and Catherine began to pour her a cup. The door opened and in stepped Adela and Moira. Hello, everyone. We all raised our cups toward the new arrivals. What a wonderful turnout we have tonight. Just the young ones. Well, not the youngest. Catherine's a stretch too. Catherine smacked Margaret's shoulder in a way that alarmed me, but the pair of them seemed to be in good spirits. What are we doing this evening? No plans. Other than a pantry raid. We are not raiding the pantry. That was it for chapter 11? Oh, well, okay. It's just continuing on in 12, sorry. Catherine smirked. I think the voters have spoken, Cicero. Ugh. Right, just until then? I'm not particularly interested in playing myself, but I wouldn't mind watching these two go at it. She waved her cup between Mara and Adela. I am willing. As long as my opponent respects the rules and the spirit of the game. Of course. Everyone began shuffling furniture around to accommodate the pair of them. I tried my best to help, although I seem to recall that any time I moved toward a chair or a barrel, someone else was already there. Eventually, I held back, not wanting to continue getting in the way. Adela and Mara sat across from each other and started to play. The conversation in the room began to blend to nothingness in my ears. I watched the game idly with my back against the wall. I struggled to get comfortable. I adjusted and readjusted my stance, unable to stand completely still, always shifting to touch another part of the wall with my back or my hand. My behavior must have been very concerning because upon catching my eye, Margaret furrowed her brow and walked toward me. What are you doing all the way over there, Hedwig? There's a spare seat, you know. Oh, no, I'm quite comfortable here. As long as you aren't feeling left out. Before I could ask what on earth she meant by that, she turned away and walked back to her chair. As far as I could tell, Adela was making strong headway against Mara. Spirits were much higher. It seemed then that they had been in their previous game. Adela was loud and determined, but was far happier in her boasting than she had been the night she flipped the table over in frustration. Mara, too, was in a fine mood. She appeared to be having a grand time even though she was losing. She laughed as she acquiesced to each of Adela's attacks and narrated all of her own moves with charming commentary. I tensed my thighs in frustration, the stone all rough enough to feel in my skin through the fabric of my frock. I wish I could be like them. Talking to people was so easy for all of my sisters. What did they have that I lacked? Well, you've been in a cell for how long now? Like, it makes the most sense why you would have trouble communicating with others, because you are always on your own. If I laughed like Mara did every time she realized one of her own chess mistakes, everyone would look at me as if I were deranged. And I wasn't good enough at chess to play the role Adela was filling in the room then. I had no skills that would make onlookers curious, nor did I have the gravitas to command a room with words alone. I watched the chess game and smiled when it was time to smile, laughed when it was time to laugh, and nodded whenever someone made an agreeable observation. A passive participant, a reactive presence, a response but never a call. Almost like you're slowly becoming a chameleon, Hedwig. I could have done it forever if I had to. Eventually, however, there was a knock at the door. Eustace left her seat to answer, enduring light jeers from the others. Well, we know it won't be a ghost. Very funny. The door swung open, but I could not see who had knocked. After a moment, however, Eustace turned and beckoned on me over. Flora wants to ask you something. Oh. Flora's wheelbarrow was sat sideways in the hallway. Darcy stood behind her, holding the handles and smiling placidly. I slipped outside the door and Eustace closed it behind me. Did you need something, Sister Flora? Yeah, I was wondering if I could borrow some of your paints. My paints? You know, your inks and tempers and stuff. Oh, what for? I want to paint something. We were talking about art and I remembered you would eliminate manuscripts and that we must have stocks of paint and inks somewhere. Indeed. I suppose I had already been volunteered to help Flora learn to draw. I thought about my tempers. The deep blue, the beautiful gold leaf, the fine red that would need multiple coats. I sighed. I had no reason to hold on to them. I can give you the rest of what I had in that box I brought to your first lesson, and I could ask the superior where the rest is. I would receive a replacement here, and then I assume must be kept in a cupboard somewhere. You can have them as long as you promise to save some for our lessons, yes? Really? I mean, yeah, of course. I can do that. I was taken aback by Flora's expression. I had seen her smile before, but there wasn't a trace of mischief or sarcasm on her face. Then, if you wait here, I can run and get you the box from my room. See, I told you. Hedwig is nice. Yeah. I jogged past the stairs to the dormitory and through my door. I left the box on the thus far empty shelf next to the writing desk in the same position it would have been on the shelf in my old cell. I opened it to inspect the colors. There was a decent variety here. Blues, reds, yellows, whites, some even gold leaf. I removed one container of black ink that I set atop my writing desk next to the one I had already been using, just in case. I closed the box and turned to leave. However, on the way I noticed that my bed was in a complete disarray. The covers were scrunched up into a ball, and in my dismay there was a large wet patch on my pillow. Had Moira managed to spill something in my room? I hastily rearranged the covers and flipped the pillow over. I suppose it was only fair that Moira be forgiven for making a mess in my dorm. I went cold thinking about the ink bottle I had accidentally smashed in her room, the one that the cat had miraculously eaten the blame for. I could not chastise Moira too harshly. Now, that makes me think she was going through your room. Almost. But she went through your bed. Was she crying on her pillow? I don't know. One or the other, right? The other cheek and so forth. I walked quickly back to the landing where Darcy and Flora were waiting patiently. Here's something to get you started at least. Without thinking, I popped the box into Flora's lap. Ow! Sorry. It's alright. She opened the box and took stock of the contents. You said the Superior would be able to tell you where more was, yeah? I would imagine, yes. Is that not enough? No, this is good. Definitely enough for now. She smiled at me again, and I smiled back. There was an awkward silence until Darcy cleared her throat. Oh, yeah, thanks, Hedwig. Darcy smiled serenely. You're welcome, Flora. What are you gonna make? It's a surprise. For everyone but you, I suppose. But I need practice first. Of course. Is that all? Yeah. Very well. I'll just, get back to it then. Darcy shook the barrel gently as I turned to leave. Thank you again, Hedwig. I smiled over my shoulder and re-entered the Misericorde. Everyone turned sharply to glare at me as soon as I stepped through the threshold. You're supposed to knock first. But my apologies. We're winding you up, Hedwig. Mostly. Even so, knocking is a good habit around here. Who knows what we might have been up to. Of course. Here, allow me to demonstrate. That really is not necessary. Nonsense. I remember when you were bewildered by stairs. There's no shame in needing a quick refresher on common courtesy. She marched toward the door, a whimsical expression on her face. Simply raise your knuckles like so, and rap them against the door thusly. Once again, for good measure. The door swung open. Hello. What? I thought you needed something. You knocked. No, just a joke. What was the joke? It would take too long to explain. Very well then. Bye. Catherine rolled her eyes and closed the door, then rejoined the others. So, what did Flora need? Oh, I suddenly remembered what Moira had told me about Catherine and paintings. Not wanting to spoil the mood, I remained vague. She just had a question about our last art lesson. Your only art lesson, you mean? Well, yes. Catherine had no way of knowing that I was doing this for her benefit, so I ignored the jab. I was annoyed though. Was Flora complaining about me whenever it was Catherine's turn to push the wheelbarrow? Well, never mind all that. Is there another wineskin? I think this one's nearly out. We only brought one? I told you Darcy has been a bit anal about supplies recently. So we're just meant to sit idly twiddling our thumbs for the next few hours? Well, it sounds like it's time for us to go on that pantry raid then. No. Yes. Oh, what fun. Everyone turned toward me. Well, why not? Everyone except Eustace whooped and clapped. Then it's settled. Margaret will lead the way, of course. Right you are. I suddenly came to the realization that I had made a very poor decision. I had been so swept up in the moment that I hadn't thought about the logistics of the night at all. I was here to extract a very specific information from everyone present. What if we got caught? What if this expedition took all night and everyone was too tired to do anything but pick over all their ill-gotten wares and eat when we returned to the Misericorde? In my opinion, I would say that would be the best time to start interrogating them, quote unquote, because they'd be relaxed and their guard would be down and they'd be satisfied. Oh, I was such a fool. Darcy's with Flora, yeah? One would assume. It seemed as though Darcy was spending the evening with her, yes. Perfect. That makes this fairly straightforward. Hedwig, can I borrow that book? I realized I'd been clutching my workbook to my chest this whole time. I panicked for a moment, but reasoned that Margaret had already seen it. Everyone would have to know what this book was for, at least what I would tell them it was for eventually. Gingerly, I handed it to her. I nearly retracted my hands when I remembered Eustace was watching, but it was too late. Margaret had already taken the book from my hands. She flipped it open and set it on the chess table. Does everyone have a... Oh, you already drawn a map. What on earth for? She's been collecting stories about the night. You know, so she can fill in the gap in her chronicles between that and when she started. A bit of a eulogy, in a way. That's a very sweet idea. I barely heard this compliment. Eustace was peering at me strangely over our glasses. I swear I could see her trying to steady her breathing. So, we're here, and the cellars are down here. Shocking revelations. My understanding of the Abbey has been altered completely. Hush. The easiest way to get to the pantry is to simply head down the stairs and hope nobody asks us what we're doing on the way. But that is also the boring way. Forgive me for asking, but is the pantry not in the kitchen? There is a pantry in the kitchen, but that's where food for the upcoming days is kept. Darcy moves ingredients from the cellar pantry to the kitchens as needed. She would notice instantly if we took from the kitchens, and, well, it would be a bit annoying. Darcy would have to go stock up from the cellars, or she'd punish us by cooking very small meals. Are we sure this is a good idea? I mean, if it's all the same food, there's plenty of food in the cellars, and we're mostly going to be pinching salted meats, dried fruit, and biscuits, etc. Easily replaceable. We do all this all the time, Hedwig. You must be stressed that this barely registers as a crime. It's one of our funny little games, really. Pretending we might get in trouble is half the fun. I'm afraid I don't understand. The thrill of transgression without any true danger of punishment. I like drubbing from the superior at worst. I was beginning to understand why the superior was so frustrated with these women. Surely it seemed like her authority amounted to nothing at all. I glanced around the others. Eustace was still regulating her breathing, staring at some point at the wall past me. Very well. I can play along. Good. So, we head out of the Misericorde. We dip into the library and head to the shelf on the right that was Catherine II's plays and things on it. I knew she was going to disagree with that. Fuck you, Eustace. We're doing it. I'm sorry? We don't do that. We're not going to the library. But behind that shelf, I know what's behind that shelf. I'm the sacristan, and I say no. No mucking about in the library. Goodness, it's just a bit of fun. For one thing, it would take twice as long just walking down the stairs. Well, yes, but this isn't about efficiency. Right, it'd be fun to show Hedwig and Adela some of the passages, that's all. You can do that on your own time. Margaret looked bewildered. Very well then. Someone should question her on that, man. She's like so adamant about people not going to parts of the library. It's almost telling. You know, this is why I don't like Eustace. She's so freaking. She likes being quote unquote subtle, but right now she's the less subtle of the bunch. Well, Hedwig, you know the drill as well as the rest of us then. We're gonna crawl through that false barrel in the cellar. Unless Eustace would prefer to just walk to the pantry door. Leave it. Let's have some fun, yeah? Yes. Margaret snapped my book shut and everyone began following her to the door. I reached out to grab it, but Eustace corralled me forward toward the rest of the group before I could. We spilled out onto the landing. It was quite dark outside now, save for the flickering torchlight. Darcy and Flora are elsewhere, it seems. Good. Shh. Margaret began to creep somewhat theatrically toward the sisters down the lower halls. Oh great, I'm hearing the Mission Impossible theme. The others followed suit, getting to the act of enthusiasm. We all skulked down the stairs into the cloister. Margaret hugged the wall, and we all sidled along behind it to the entrance to the cellars. There was an air of mockery about the whole enterprise. But even so, I couldn't help but stare at the Superior's door down the way, and worried that it might swing open. Hold on, I think I hear something. We were as quiet as we could be. I could hear nothing but the breeze. Wait here. Margaret ducked down and slipped into the entrance, disappearing down the staircase. I shivered. Moira turned to face me, looked me up and down, and then giggled. She spoke in a tiny whisper. Are you cold, Hedwig? Yes, are you not? I am. But you look very cold. I furrowed my brow, unsure what she meant. Her eyes flicked downward from mine, and I realized what she meant. I fumed and folded my arms across my chest. She started giggling so heartily that Eustace had to shush her. Margaret whispered from up ahead. I think Charity and Marta might be down there. That wouldn't surprise me, but I think they might be asleep. I hear snoring. Let's keep going. I wanted to protest. Surely 6 women crawling through a false barrel would make a lot of noise, but it was too late. Everyone was already following Margaret down the staircase. I felt Eustace's hands on my back pushing me forward. followed after the others. It was almost pitch black down here, save for a flickering candle somewhere in the rows of casks. Margaret pointed toward the light. They're over there, I reckon. It's bloody dark down there. Should we fetch a briquette? I know my way around. Just follow me. Margaret ducked to the right and began leading us through the barrels. I never realized just how maze-like it was down here. I was soon navigating on sound alone, keeping an ear out for shuffling fabric in front of me. For all I knew, we were moving in circles. Every now and then a snore would echo throughout the cellar, and all movement would cease. It was during one of these pauses that something caught my eye. Through the rows of casks, I could see a painting propped up on an easel. I could not make out what it was in the dark, nor through the distance, but it made all my hair stand on end. Is that what Flora was working on? I felt a sudden stab of regret. My precious materials were being wasted on crudity. The subject was recognizably human, but it was decidedly formless. It was dark, perhaps hooded. It reminded me of Hedwig. Psst. I turned away from the strange painting and continued following Margaret's voice as best I could. We crept along for a few more minutes, making as little noise as we could. Finally, our guide stopped. It's this one. Carefully, I saw her open the round door to the tunnel. The latch made a loud and dull clunk. She stopped for a moment, but the snoring had not stopped. There we go, everyone in. She ushered Catherine, Moira, and Adela in, and gestured toward Eustace and I. We'll join you in a moment. I just remember I need to ask Hedwig something. Oh, here we go. I swear, sometimes Hedwig, you should just punch her in the face. I really don't mind that. Now? Yes. See you in a minute then. She slipped inside the barrel tunnel. I could hear relaxed voices emanating from the pantry. I didn't even endorse this endeavor, but the joyful sounds coming from inside were so inviting compared to Eustace's cold stare. Oh, fuck you, Eustace. She yanked my sleeve to tug me away from the false barrel, then pinned me against a stack of real ones. I'd only seen her like this once in the garden the night Flora had gone missing. You made a promise, Hedwig. She spoke in a furious, hoarse whisper. Yes, I did, but... A promise. No. I believe I was very clear. You were, but... Eustace, you're not the only one I'm beholden to on this matter. Who else? My God, how stupid are you? The Superior, of course. I cannot be idle. I just cannot. She demands results from me, and you demand passivity. I thought I could do both somehow. Both? What do you mean, both? Well, I lied. I lied to Margaret and told her I was asking her questions about the night Catherine was killed. I already told you what happened that night. Of course, but that wouldn't be enough. Enough? Enough to prove anything, one way or another? I've been telling people that I intend to fill the gap in between mine and Catherine's chronicles. Not just the night she died, but the days between. Nobody suspects a thing. So you are breaking your promise. That didn't take very long. Well, I wasn't gonna ask you. You just looked at me the way one might regard a fly on their food. That's your attempt to split the difference? That's what you see as doing both? Well, I'm lying to them, but not entirely. I do intend to write those chronicles. Everyone will see them. They'll just also be helping me work out what happened to Catherine. Get it through your thick skull. James killed Catherine. Fuck you, bitch. No. You and I both know that's not true. It's what the truth has to be. Sometimes it's best to accept an uncomplicated lie than a complicated truth. You always speak in riddles about this. What's going on? Are you under threat? What do you know that I do not? Everything. As I've told you time and time again. Can't I help you? Is there something I can do to... No, there is not. You have proven that I cannot trust you. And if I cannot trust you, I must move against you. What? You heard me. We are enemies now. Good. I don't like you. I hate Eustace. God. And we will be until you stop meddling. What are you gonna do to me? Please don't hurt me. Hurt you? By all rights, I should kill you. I let out an involuntarily yelp, but Eustace silenced it with her hand. I should. But I will not have to, because I have knowledge sharper than any knife. I know why you are here. I struggled to speak to her hand. What do you mean? Don't push me.
I know exactly why you were sent to this convent all those years ago. I know why you took those vows. I know why your family abandoned you. I threw her off me in a rage. She collided with a cask behind it with a dull thud. Her glasses were knocked askew, and before I knew it, I was at her throat. Yes! Get her! Who is the liar here? You couldn't know those things because I don't know those things. Try me. There's nothing to know. Again? Try me. She spoke in a rasp, and I realized my hand was clenched around her throat. I relented and stood up. I know that you remember. You must. Why else would you react like this? Because I don't suffer liars. Then how do you live with yourself? She picked her glasses up and set them upon her face. You know, Hedwig, I've been protecting you from many things here. Some of them important. Many of them trivial. Little things that would drive you slowly mad if you saw them. Things that would crack the walls of your righteous little mind. I'm done with all that now. You may do as you please, but understand that as you reap what you shall sow. I've always sought only to help. Then help yourself. Accept the world as it is or suffer. Hello? Is someone there? The candlelight was moving. Eustace nodded toward the barrel tunnel and I obeyed. We scrambled inside as quietly as we could. We emerged in the pantry. The others appeared to be having a grand time picking through jerky, sausages, crackers, and all manner of other treats. Took you long enough. We could speak a little louder in here, although everyone was still somewhat hushed. I think we might have woken Charity by accident. We should stay in here for a bit. Wait for her and Marta to leave. Or pass on. What might take, I don't know, 5 minutes? Everyone chuckled darkly. Are you well, Hedwig? She's fine. We were just chatting. I had some burning questions for her about Trier. Trier? Where she's from? Midnight seems a strange time to ask someone about the old days. Eustace picked up a bit of sliced sausage and bit into it with rancor. It was relevant. I wanted to know her opinions on German sausage before I picked anything to eat. Ah. Well, take your pick. The others were holding their frocks out to carry their piles of food. Eustace was already walking around the room picking whatever she liked from the barrels and jars. I followed suit, but I was not hungry. My mind and heart were racing. Enemies. It was too much to bear. I had been indecisive for so long, surreptitious and quiet for so long. I had never wanted to make an enemy. In the back of my mind, there had always been a fear that moving too far in any direction would cause great scorn. Eustace felt the worst possible foe I could have earned. I wanted to burst into tears and beg for forgiveness. Man, listen. Man, you should continue to choke her. I really don't like Eustace, man. If I haven't, spoke that out enough, I really don't like her. And I feel bad for Hedwig, but I also, now that she brought it up, I'm curious about Hedwig's past too. However dire it may actually lead into. And I wanted to wring her neck. Yes. Please continue that. Continue that train of thought. More indecision. I tried to focus on picking enough meats and fruits to avoid suspicion. The last thing I needed was another Hedwig, are you feeling well? Oh, what a miserable wretch I was. One tiny sliver of determination. One small light I had nurtured in my soul, and this is all it had earned me. When you want to get off that darkest ground, but gravity pulls you straight down.